All right, sorry about all the hiccups. This is the Political Matrix. Back again. I am your host, Young Morpheus, and this is my good friend and co-captain, Manuel, known as Blue Maverick on Twitter. Um, which one of the topics did you want to get into first, Emmanuel?
It doesn't really matter. I guess we could do the Hunter Biden thing first. Um,
I'll say, I guess before
apparently,
I'll give it
go ahead.
another minute or so to let people file back in. I see we got a couple of people who have popped back in so far, so give it a little bit more time so that we don't get running without the rest of the audience. So basically, how's your week been so far?
Um, uh, it's been a little. Well, we were talking about it last week, where they were talking about putting more money into the Democratic races and stuff like that, and I noticed it. But literally, like, I think like last week when you brought it up to like me and Chris, I noticed it. But then like this week, it's like it's literally all but gone.
Hmm.
I mean, there's no there's no real. I mean, the push from this week compared to last week is just it's almost completely non-existent. It's gone. I mean, their push at the beginning of the month to like right now is just like literally night and day.
Yeah,
It's like the weirdest thing. Go ahead.
I guess since you brought that up, I'll talk about that a little bit before we get into the first story. But I've noticed that even in the sporting events, everywhere you go, it's vote, 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 vote. It's been like everywhere, like forced down your throat, almost. I've been getting like blown up through my phone, all kind of phone calls and messages, and through my email. I mean, I have like three emails, but all of them are just getting blown up right now with either Trump or Biden or whatever. I mean, my news feeds are getting flooded, and I'm even trying to, as you know, I've been kind of trying to leave the politics more to you to kind of keep an eye on and keep us abreast of the situation. Um, but even though I've been trying to push myself and give a little distance, it's still just been like flooding me nonstop. And then all of a sudden, it seems like everything has been switched over to how many votes have been counted, and what's going on with the tallies, and the Trump campaign's worried, and then no, Biden is actually worried, and then no, Biden is actually really ahead, but no, Trump is really ahead. So I was wondering, like, what are your thoughts on some of that stuff?
In regards to that, I guess I'm kind of like where you are. I kind of feel like I'm a little burned out from it at this point. Like I'm just kind of like I don't really care who wins at this point. I'm like just it just feels like there's really no difference. It feels like I'm living out like the next 4 years, and then with what happened with Hunter the other day, and I was just like, oh crap, it's just like 4 years ago, and I was just kind of like done. So, but yes, you were correct in your assumption. It was just I've been same thing, phone calls, phone calls, flyers, emails, constantly pushing it down my throat, and I'm just like, even online, it's just um there's only so many times you can hear Biden give out the same insipid platitude like over and over again, like saving the soul of the nation. I'm like, what does that even mean? So I know I'm supposed to keep abreast of the situation, but I was just like, it's getting hard, man. It's just getting harder, and it's just getting harder and harder to like pay attention when like all this other like little stuff is going on and I'm starting to notice. So I get where you're coming from with that is what I'm saying. So
Yeah, I mean, and Signs, Signs said it also about they are trying to kill our spirits by kicking us while we're down. Those vote commercials are, yeah, they're on TV all the time. And Kelly says she has a landline, so she's been having fun with them. Says they've been actually calling her, asking her if she's going to vote Biden or Trump. And so yeah, if they call me, I probably would do the same also, but it's the texting and getting blown up with these long, like paragraph of stuff. And then when I say take me off the list, and they take me off the list for a Biden one, then I hear, well, support the down ballot candidates, do this, the whatever other vote Prop 20 this, Prop 30 that, whatever. And that's nonstop. If you block one or you tell them to take you off the list, there's just another one, and it just seems like, oh, I can't wait till November 3rd and this is over. But I guess we'll just go ahead to our first topic that I want to talk about, with because you talked about it a little bit right there, about what happened the other day with Hunter Biden. And so, why don't you fill us all in first on kind of what's went on with the whole Hunter Biden thing, and I guess a little background for those who might not know about, some of the stuff with Hunter Biden, and where we kind of sit now on this whole like timeline of this whole Biden Burisma whole situation.
okay, so as I know about it, because from what I know about it, basically, the New York Post posted a story about Hunter Biden and about, I think it was about like his drug use, or it just posted him in an unflattering light, which isn't really surprising for like a like a political campaign. You bring up the family to embarrass the candidate or whatever. That wasn't the weird thing. It wasn't the weird thing. The weird thing was Twitter and Facebook just censoring it out completely, surprisingly, literally right around the story, you couldn't retweet it, you couldn't post about it, you couldn't do anything with it. I mean, Twitter was always draconian with that stuff before, but this one, it seemed like they kicked it up to an entirely next level type of deal. Like if you posted a picture of him drunk or whatever, instant ban. You posted the NY Post story, either instant ban or you couldn't retweet, and it was wild, man. I was utterly surprised. I think first Facebook did it, and I'm not really on Facebook, but I know Facebook did it, and then Twitter started doing it. But Twitter's was so significant, even Jack, the head of Twitter, Jack Dorsey got involved, and I'm like, oh man, I'm like saying it's not a big deal or whatever, and then I thought, well, supposedly, I think it's Kamala Harris, his sister, has connections to Twitter, and then I think there's someone that used to work on Twitter that has connections to the Biden campaign, working in the transition team as well. So I didn't really look too much into it. It was literally, I think it was maybe the next day or so, they started, you saw media and other news people start slinging out that it's a Russia disinformation plot. Cue the big eye roll. I was just kind of done. So that's pretty much where I'm at with that story. But that censorship was fascinating. That censorship was fascinating.
Kelly said she's with you, Emmanuel. Election fatigue. She says she's voting green, then pouring a drink, smoking a bowl to watch the chaos of the Kabuki Theater election. Exactly. I mean, there's no other way to really look at it, because at this point everything has been set in motion the way that they've designed it to go, how they want it to go, and they don't want any interference from anybody who wants to pester anything at the last moment. And if you know that pretty much everybody on the top echelon has basically made a choice, either they're with Trump or they're with Biden. And so to achieve those means of the end, they don't really care. Because I mean, if you honestly look at most of these people are Machiavellians anyway. And so they will use whoever or whatever to get to their ultimate goals. So if they want Biden in there, yeah, they're going to definitely stop up any kind of traffic that could be possibly negative. And I actually think the powers that be are kind of more on the Biden train. And so I think that's where more of the favorable coverage is going to lead towards Biden's side. So Trump is still going to be the wild card. So that's the reason why I feel like, yeah, they're going to go with Biden more so, or want Biden more so. But then that lends to, is it going to be a clean election where one person wins, one person loses, there's a concession, and it's over with? Or is this going to be months and months of chaos down the road through the federal courts trying to figure out who wins? And if you think about back to, say, the 2000 election, what happened in Florida with Katherine Harris and Jeb Bush, this is all looking like the same kind of situation, because you have the whole thing with Amy Coney Barrett, or not sure exactly how to say her name, but you all know what I'm talking about, the Supreme Court justice pick. And so with that, if she does get confirmed, Trump has an overwhelming majority that is going to swing him in there. So, I mean, it's going to be very interesting to figure out how this all plays out. I mean, what's your thought, brother?
Okay. Do you remember at the tail? I think it was like the tail end of, I think, last week or something like that. And you and Chris were talking about like who was going to win, and you thought it was going to point more towards Biden, and Chris thought it was going to point more towards Trump. And frankly, I didn't believe you until I was like inundated with like all of that campaign information, because it seemed like maybe it was always there and I just never noticed it, but I just started to notice all the campaign information that was happening in my state because I live in Georgia. But now, they're talking about like Trump's got like Bernie level crowds like in Florida and stuff, like that. And like literally everything he's done, they don't really seem to care anything about it. And then you tie in any bad information about Biden is like instantly being flagged as like a Russian, a foreign interference plot or a Russian disinformation plot. You're right. It's about to get very, very ugly and very, very interesting. And, I'm shocked to say I honestly don't know how it's going to play out now. I mean, I thought, it was just like a fun thing to watch, and I was like, I could predict it was going to happen, but I honestly don't know what's going to happen now. So.
Well, Signs put a good comment that I wanted to add in there. I mean, Kelly and Signs have been, giving great commentary, and sometimes I can't get all the comments in there, but I saw this one that I wanted to read out real quick. It says, even Howie seems like he's trying to lose the same eye. Oh, I'm sorry, I got to go a little scratch there. The same eye accused the DNC and RNC campaigns, the blaming the party. Game continues, Green 2020. And I think that's also why they're doing such a push on down ballot people also. They're hoping that if they can at least get you in there and you vote Democratic down ballot, there's a possibility that you might decide to vote Biden. And that's part of what I think, that's why I think we're getting flooded with all this other stuff, because they picked up on the fact of those Bernie supporters who still are trying to go for policy, and are going to try to, go down ballot. And so I think that their next target will be to start to chop the heads off of all those new freshman congresswomen and congressmen. That's what I believe, just like they're doing with AOC and the squad right now. AOC is basically, I don't know what she's doing, but it's not good in my opinion. And then the rest of the squad is basically turning into almost like Elizabeth Warren Democrats. So the way I see it is this thing is forming up, and the kabuki theater that we've all been held under for so long, I think it's starting to be revealed to those who have an eye and who are willing to, question, what we're seeing, and are able to see, what, this person receives all this campaign donations and then they do X. And it's easy after a while to start seeing that. But we've been so, I guess, pushed into the mindset of believing that, oh, well, no, they're good people, they wouldn't be doing this. Or, they're trying their best, we just don't understand the fights that are going on. Instead of, maybe they're just getting paid and they're doing exactly what they're supposed to do. And we're the suckers who think that they're on our sides fighting, when we're the ones who they're dancing around and doing the show for. Like, I say often, I look at Congress just like the Harlem Globetrotters, or what I call it, the World Globetrotters and the Washington Generals. We already know who's going to win every single time, but we go to the game, it's entertaining, exciting. That's the same thing that's going on in politics right now. I mean, we're going through this whole I hate Biden and this and that. And yeah, I'm with the Twitter left. And the Twitter left is buying it up and listening to, your secular talks and all of those people who are so hardcore towards Biden, and you watch them all soften across the board. They're all softening. And they might not come out and say, I'm going to vote for Biden, but you could tell that they're about at least a coin flip from doing it. And you give that another week and let
Humanist Report already.
Yeah, you give that another week and let Trump say he wants to detain more people at the border, and then they're going to be completely we got to do it. We got to vote Biden. We don't have a choice. That's what I see coming. More of the dog and pony show, and it's got to the point where they realize, oh crap, the influence that we had in the mainstream media is not working as much, and legacy and print media. So we need to go to the media they're listening to. That's the reason why you have all these Pod Save America, Michelle Obama's, the Barbara Boxer show. That's the reason why you have these people, because they're trying to creep in and saturate the market to make it harder for the people who are actually talking about real issues and real policies and real debates and strategies and ways on getting out of this kind of kabuki theater that we're trapped in. As Kelly said earlier, what they're doing is they're trying to just dismay things and muddy the waters, the same way which Trump does whenever he's debating somebody, just muddies up the waters. I also heard another theory that Trump interrupting Biden might have also been part of the kabuki theater to keep Biden from having to talk as much and stammer and make mistakes. I was like, I mean, at this point, I can't rule any of those kind of things out, because this seems it just seems like the same dog and pony show. And after you follow politics hardcore for decades, at this point now that I have, I mean, I remember, watching, back to Reagan and paying attention to that and midterms and all those things like that. So you see this pattern over and over and over. And now I'm actually able to search the ties and put the monies and follow the dots here and there. And still at this point, it is still hard for people to accept the information. So, I mean, sorry to go on a little rant there. I guess I see we got a couple of comments. I'll try to go into some of the comments. Sorry about that. Let's see. Kelly said, I heard that no one showed up at the Joe Kamala rally and motor parade in Arizona, but Trump has hundreds showing up. Yeah. And that's the reason why I think that Trump is going to be able to have an argument that maybe there is something shady with Biden's numbers, because he doesn't have any actual enthusiasm that he can show on the streets. So that's something that I think he's going to have, whether it's legitimate argument or not. It's something he's going to be able to use to manipulate. Let's see. Kelly also said, "I'd like a million Cori Bushes before the Dems get to her," and that's the problem. What they'll either do is, if they can't get to her, what they'll do is marginalize her. So they'll put her on some committee in the back corner where she can't really do anything and never have any access. And that's what I noticed that they're doing, because at this point they're moving to something a little bit bigger, and it the back and forth and the letting us feel like we have hope to change some things. I think that time is about to be over with, and that real authoritarian fist, whether it comes from the right or the left, is coming. So let's see what else. Whoops, skip past. Said that's true. I will not only leave, I'd probably sell my shitty little house too. Well, I honestly believe that whether you go with biblical prophecy, like I believe, or you just go with what you're seeing in the news with the tensions between the different countries and which countries have nuclear weapons and how things could go wrong, and who is the biggest target, outside of, I guess, Israel, would be United States. So to not think there's a possibility that the United States could be right in the crosshairs of something cataclysmic coming would be foolish, I think, to even feel that comfort to just, oh, well, I'll just chill here in America, nothing's going to happen. So if you have the means, I mean, I wouldn't rule out keeping that thought in mind. Kelly also says, never Biden, never Trump. I only have you. Oh, Katie Halpert, Tim Black, and Marcus. Yes, we're gonna be here for you until they start trying to completely shut us down. Which we know that could be any day now. Signs also says, explain a great many things, controlled oppositions, and the one night he was super bait and gave it away. That he was said, control. Yeah, it's all controlled opposition. I mean, there's a video of Hillary literally talking about that she would, after she got elected, she wouldn't have to go far to hear from her bosses right down the street. So I don't know if y'all have seen that video or not. I'll try to find it, and I will put it in the comment section of this broadcast when I find it. So make sure to check by at least Monday or so, and I should have found it by then to put it into the comments. If not, hit me up through my DM or email me at marcusjcage@yahoo. Let's see, one more comment from Kelly. Costa Rica has no military, just saying. Yeah, I mean, it's not a bad place to go. Honestly, I'm one of those people where I think it's almost better to go into the reverse lion's den, because I believe the attack is going to come from Russia or China, primarily. And if they're in coordination with Russia, China, North Korea, and Iran, or even Saudi Arabia, because I've never trusted Saudi Arabia, and I think it's only a matter of time before they would decide to get America out of the picture and rather deal with those other nations who see them more as an equal instead of somebody they have underfoot. So I know I blabbed a whole lot, got the comments out of the way for now. So what do you think, Emmanuel? From
I agree. Hold on. I agree with what you're saying. I do believe something big is coming. That's probably why I alluded to not only the Hunter Biden thing, but also the thing I noticed with COVID. It just all seems like a dog and pony show leading up to like the big. I think we're in like the tail end of it. I think we're in like the big finish. Finally, like we're really going to see like the very worst of it come. And I think a lot of people aren't prepared for it. And if I had the money, I'd leave too. So I don't blame Kelly for that. I don't blame Kelly for that at all. I would definitely do it. It costs so much. And so many people feel that way now. So that's really how I feel about it. I mean, I don't know much about biblical prophecy, but you do this work long enough, you start to ask the right questions to the right people, or you start to ask the right questions and piss the wrong people off. You're starting to notice. So, I'm grateful for that opportunity, but I'm just like, I think before I think like 4 years ago, I would have been like all jazzed and charged up. Like, he's bad. She's good. Let's get her in. Who do I vote for to stop for Trump or whatever?
Hey, man, hold 1 second. I need to go and grab something for something that I'm gonna tell you about, that I wanted to tell you all about, that I forgot in the other room. So I will be right back in a second. Keep going.
Okay. All right, let me read the comments here. Rica has no military. What is this? Star? Okay. Honestly, at this point, it just feels, it just kind of feels like everybody's just kind of spinning their wheels, and I'm trying to figure out what the next move is, or where to go, or how to operate, or how to function. And, even I feel it. I'm just like, I don't know if anybody follows me on here. I mean, anybody follows my Twitter, but for a lot of my life, I cared a lot about how politics was running, and now I just really don't care as much as I used to. And I feel bad about that a little bit because, after doing it for so long, I used to care about a lot. Used to care about a lot of different things. So, it's weird. It's weird. It's weird, like scratching under the surface now. It's weird, like questioning like everything that's going on now. I mean, it's weird having that. It's weird having that mindset now. Like it's just like when we start talking about the COVID thing, there's just a lot there that I have. There's just a lot there I have a serious problem with, that I would say 4 years ago I wouldn't have even have thought anything, about. So that's it. That's all I really got. Did you find what you were looking for, Marcus?
Oh yeah, I found what I was looking for. I took a couple of notes about something I want to talk about.
Okay.
And then I also grabbed, as people in the faith call it, I grabbed my sword, so that I could be able to remember some context. I probably won't even need to open it up for some of the stuff that I was going to tell you about. But just in case, I have it there handy. What I wanted to I need to read that comment which Sign said there, because it's going to lean perfectly into what I was going to talk about. And then you were saying you don't know about biblical prophecy very much, so I'm going to give just a little bit, because there's so much. And the thing about it is, some of it is a little bit clear. Some of it is spoken in euphemisms like dragons and different heads. And, the dragon had like 10 horns and all these different things like that. 7 heads and 15, you know what I'm saying? So it says all those things, and those denote different things. And then there's also things which it'll explain, where it'll talk about like a woman crying, and then it'll give another image through like a vision, and then they're seeing a city. And so it's explaining certain things in different ways. But that kind of got, I mean, without getting too far in depth on that, I'll read Sign's comment and then I'll get into what I was going to say. It says, Sign says, you mean our military industrial complex will invite them in for we be strategically attacked again so we can start those needed wars, and you think the current patriarch sucks now? Entirely. When they have these movies out there, there's a reason why there's so many post-apocalyptic films that come out almost every single year. It's to condition you to some of the things that might happen. Now, they know what they plan on doing in certain aspects, and some of it comes out almost imitating art exactly, or some of it not exactly like art. There's an old movie called Soylent Green that I don't know if most people have heard about it. It's not it's kind of more of a like a B-rated film back in the day, but basically there's food shortages and famines in this future reality, and everybody eats this stuff called Soylent Green. And spoiler alert, I'll go on ahead and just tell you because I doubt anybody is going to go look up this movie. And if you do, my apologies for spoiling it for you. But they find out that the Soylent Green, they say that, oh, well, we're having all these problems, we're going to run out of it. And so it creates all these different inflations and economic issues. It turns out that the Soylent Green is actually the people who die. So after they're killing people, they're turning them into these like little chip patties that they're feeding out to the masses of people. And so that some of those kind of things which we see in society now about food shortages and trying to come up with beyond beef and some of those things like that, we're starting to have the certain insects which are dying, like bees or whatever. And if bees start going extinct, certain food sources are going to literally go extinct. And those are certain prophecies that are talked about loosely throughout the Bible. Now, some of them towards the end of days, it goes in depth about a lot. Let's see. Sign said, I am Soylent Great big goodness. And then Kelly says, Soylent Green pisses me off to no end because of its misogyny. Yeah, it does. Not the cannibalism. Oh, good gracious. But yeah, it some of those movies you kind of have to take what you can from them, because they are steamed with misogyny sometimes, or racism, or you know, or mistreatment towards the elderly, or people who are disabled. So a lot of those films we will throw out completely because of those things, and miss what they're trying to throw in there. Because what I believe is they mock us throwing the truth out there in comedy and stuff that's not as serious, and then they layer it with a whole bunch of BS, so that it's hard to decipher if that's legitimate. Like, remember in the movie Men in Black, when they were getting all their news from like the National Enquirer? It's kind of like the same thing. Put the truth in areas where it's harder to find, or in areas where you can find, but it's harder to be verifiable. So doubt can always be cast over, and always keep people a little bit confused. Let's see. There was a question that Kelly asked. Says, honestly,
she asked what she could do, what we could do for. She asked what she could do to help us get our message out. Basically, that was what her question. I mean, I'm paraphrasing, but that was what her question. If you scroll up a little bit, that's what her question was.
I'll let you answer first.
Well, I would say, you know, word of mouth is always important. Posting about us is always important. Letting them know what we're talking about is always important. Basically, you know, what stuff I work on, you know, I'm just working on asking, you know, I'm working on being more aware about what's going on in the world, and, you know, stuff with my disability and everything. That's me personally. But as far as like the show and what we're doing, definitely telling more people, if you've got some form of social media, definitely posting more about it in highlights or whatever, or what we talk about and stuff like that, because I feel there was a lot of people, I feel a lot of people have like election fatigue or whatever. And, maybe we could say something else or point you in another direction or talk about something else that just could give you a little relief from that, as we wind, as we move closer and closer to election day and people get more and more tired of it. So, I mean, that's just me. Marcus can go next.
That's an excellent question, because for me, it's kind of a twofold question. I can look at it from the show angle, and what I would want from the show angle would be for people to, I guess the best way to help as far as the show angle is maybe even challenge, have people question them on what do they want to know about, and invite them to question us, invite them to challenge us to search for answers for them on things which they may not understand, because I believe there's so many things which I don't even think about, which I have sitting in the back of my head that I know about, which I might be able to clear up some questions for people, or at least give them some perspectives or some angles or even strategies on some ways to do certain things. I feel a lot of, especially people in the lefty communities, their strategy and organization is all over the place, and it's a big part of why they have trouble advancing things. But I guess me as a Black man in general, personally, my biggest thing would be to actually wake people up to one of the biggest, um, you know what, let's just go on ahead and let's rip the Band-Aid all the way off and say it. One of the biggest lies is being perpetrated in the world right now. And through my biblical faith, this lie has to be exposed to the world. The world has to accept this truth. Now, they don't have to accept who I believe in the place of this, but the one thing they have to understand is that the story which the Zionists tell is not only incorrect, but it is a flat out fabrication and a lie. And it is part of what keeps my people oppressed. And I know this can get me into some hot water, but I'm just going to say it. Through archaeology, through research, and through prophecy of the Bible, I believe that I can trace I believe that I have a strong idea who majority of the 12 tribes of Israel from the Bible, I'm talking about like bloodline, who they actually are. And unfortunately, I'm not saying this to try to insult any people of Jewish faith who felt like that's their actual, what they've learned is that they descend from the actual line from Israel. It's not true, and I'm not saying that to try to be anti-Semitic in any kind of way, because if you actually understand what anti-Semitic even means, there's a ton of people who fall up under Shemites. Those people from North Africa, a good chunk of them who are not considered Hamites to the Bible would be considered Shemites. Shemites actually goes even into some people who would have been in Turkey or parts of what do they call it, Lesser Asia Minor or whatever. So when you're talking about Shemites, that's a ton of people. And the one of the big problems is you cannot be a Shemite and actually be from Europe. It does not add up. And then biblically, it even tells that most of what a lot of these people believe is not correct, even biblically. And it can be proven multiple places. And the reason why it's not talked about, and the reason why this is perpetrated, is because the Roman Catholic Church, through a lot of things which they tried to do through the Renaissance period, whitewashing history and hiding certain things and destroying parts of history. Then you had Martin Luther from the Protestant church, who selectively ripped out chunks of the Bible to intentionally not tell the whole truth, which gave actual historical data points which you could follow and follow movements and follow archaeology to actually see what those Hebrew people actually look like, where they actually went, what actually happened to them. And they did not go into Europe. That is not where they went. Biblically, there is somebody who was south of Jerusalem, south of Israel, and under John Hyrcanus in the BC days, they were forced to convert. That's biblical. That's a fact. That's not, I don't care what some rabbi would want to tell you. This is factual in the Bible. Then you also notice that the people who moved from that land, they moved into a place called Kittim in the Bible. Kittim is Rome. They merged with those people in Rome and became indistinguishable from that point on, according to the Bible. So even under their own logic, the Bible indicts everything that they're saying. It literally tells the coloration of those people. It talks about the blessings and curses. And if they believe in the blessings and curses, that part indicts them also. Because according to the Mosaic law, them as a nation would have to be holding tight to all of those things. If you have giant chunks of your society not even believing in God or the Messiah, that would be a big problem there. And so, according to the blessings and curses, which are in Deuteronomy, which say last forever, they would still be under these cursings or blessings. And the fact that they are not showing any signs of being under these curses shows you that that's another sign that that is not correct. Another thing, the language. They use actual Hebraic signs, that's true. But if you actually go into the language, it is mostly European and Slavic. It is not actual Paleo Hebrew, not even close. And so, because that those rabbis only choose to take about 25% of the Bible and only want to focus on that, and then misquote many things of it, and then take another doctrine, a spoken word doctrine, and then basically rely on that for most of their belief system. That is a problem, because what you have is you have the Christian church who has not read those missing books, which I talked about, who don't understand this history and don't know what's really going on. And that's the reason why a lot of things have been able to go on the way they went on, because a lot of the world has accepted something that's not true. Therefore, allowing people to do things which are unfair and to actually, really do things which are unfair to a whole nother group of people. Anytime somebody says anti-Semitic and I hear that word, I think of what's done to Blacks, Latinos, and Native American. That's anti-Semitic in my mind, because through history, archaeology, and the Bible, those people have 10 times more of a claim than the people who say so right now. So I know that's probably going to get me in trouble for all that stuff I said. So, Emmanuel, what do you think? Oh, Emmanuel, you're muted.
I think you have very strong beliefs, and I stand by them. And you bring the truth that nobody else wants to, and I know that at some point we're all going to have to confront it. I mean, I can't think of anything as clever as Kelly here, who said Marcus is a Christian and a Chiefs fan. Two strike.
Not a Christian, actually. Not a Christian, actually.
Really?
No, I don't believe in
Oh, I
any.
didn't know
I don't
that.
believe in any organized religion at all. I just solely read the
Okay.
Bible.
See, I didn't know. See, I just learned something there. I didn't know that.
No, I completely believe that a lot of Christianity is preaching a false doctrine.
Okay.
hmm
All
And I
right.
believe that the fact that you're not teaching all of the books, or at least going to the closest interpretation between the King James 1611. Uh, when you read in there, and there's a part that's called the Apocrypha. That part, a lot of people have debated it, wanted to get rid of it, and even Revelations, which is the last book of the Bible, people wanted to get rid of that. And the reason why is because if you're able to read some of these things that are in there, I mean, I'll give you one verse real quick, and I believe it's Maccabees, third for whatever. It's First Maccabees, and it talks about the heathen painting the likeness of themselves over Christ, basically. That's what happened during the Renaissance period. If you go back to iconoclasm, I can show you all kind of portraits, early, like even back to the 700s, where you see most of the people in the Bible depicted of a dark hue. If you also go through and explain, there's plenty of times where people like King Solomon say, "I'm black and comely," means I'm obviously black and I'm attractive. There's multiple things in there. When it describes Christ, it describes his skin tone, and this is not just his feet, like it says in Revelations. If you go into Daniel, it says his arms, also describing them as burnt brass. Um, Now, if you look at burnt brass, that's pretty dark. So that's what I'm saying. Even on just what the Bible is saying, and then you have um, people who have been doing the research lately have been saying that, for one, the DNA does not match with North Africa. There's little ties, there's a little bits there, but if you originated from near Turkey and the Caucasus Mountains, yeah, you would have a little bit of Middle Eastern, but that's not the same as actually being from there. Just like what's happening right now, a lot of the people who are being born there who have come over from Ukraine and Russia are having much higher skin cancer rates. So if you were naturally supposed to, if you that was naturally your homeland, why are you having such high skin cancer rates there? I mean, there's I could sit there and go for hours breaking down reasons that don't make any sense. I mean, I literally watched their rabbis who are supposed to be the teachers, the most knowledgeable men in the faith, wear head coverings when it literally says in the Bible, if you wear a head covering, you're dishonoring your head to God. So if the main priest can't even follow what it actually says, and it says stuff very clearly, you have to know that these people they're not being 100% honest with what they're saying. Now, I don't fault the people who have grown up believing certain things because that's what they've been told and it's been passed down. But these rabbis who are in the synagogues, they know the truth and they know that they're lying. There are reasons why they tell them not to read certain verses. There's one famous verse which in synagogues which they would never ever read, and it describes um, Christ being unattractive, being very unattractive to look at. But the reason why they kind of toss that out is because you want to have this Caesar Borgia Renaissance looking Christ, which the predominant image which has been pushed around the world was Caesar Borgia, which was an actual person, one of the sons of the popes who was um, closely affiliated with Leonardo da Vinci, we'll say. What are you saying, Manuel?
No, I was reading the comment where it said, "What if it's hot and the sun's in your face?" I'm sorry. He was commenting that while you were
Well,
saying it. I was
that's one of
laughing
the
at it. I'm
things.
sorry.
That's one of the things which it gets into a touchy area when you start talking about hot sun and red. Um,
You want
make
to
sure.
read the? You want to?
The reason why it gets complicated is because Some people who share my beliefs, some of them we have some differences. Um, and when it starts breaking into after the flood and when it breaks down different lines, um, there's a line of Japheth, which populated what would have been most of Europe and parts of Asia. Um, I believe that those people would have been maybe the lighter complected black people, some which could have eventually became uh, what is known as modern the fathers of most Caucasians. Um, then you have a different line, and that line of people they that are born actually the twin brother of Jacob, the progenitor of the whole line of Israel, who was not given the promise. He was described as red. And the reason why he was described as red is they say that he was devoid of color, basically. So he didn't have pigmentation. And being in that area, let's just call it out, let's just be honest, most Caucasian babies, when they're born and they come out crying, they are red. And so Esau was described as red. So a lot of people believe that that would be description for um, Esau being a so-called white man, or his whole line of the people called Edomites would have been so-called white people. And so I believe, yes, that is true. And then I also believe that, yes, you have white people who derive from the son of Japheth. And as you get into the Apocrypha, it says that there became intermixing. So it gets hard to tell who's who. So yes, there are some people who are going to be the line of Esau, the evil guy, the Edomite or whatever. And some people believe that's just all white people as a whole. I don't subscribe to that faith, but I do believe that you will never know who actually is descendant of that line. And I believe that line is hidden, tucked, hiding within the white race. That's where all the racism comes in, the KKK and all of these issues, because in the Bible it says that between those brothers it would be a perpetual hatred always. And so if Jacob
Well, when
is black,
when you're talking right when you're talking about racism and all that, in regards to that, Kelly asked a question
mhm.
About the 100% abolition of police and prosecutors. She she wanted to know our opinion on that. And since you brought up the concept of racism, I figured that was the perfect time to bring it up.
Well, that's perfect. That's kind of a perfect question because it delves into like the 5G subject that I've been looking into. See, most people only know 5G that it's going to make their phones faster, that they're going to have faster downloads, that they're probably going to have less problems with drop calls, things like that. But there's other things that the 5G is going to be able to do. 5G is also going to be able to operate more computer systems and be able to control far more data, including the rollout of automated vehicles. That's going to be something that they're working on. That it'll get to a point that yes, most of us will not drive cars anymore. That'll be all controlled through some kind of automated system. That's the goal anyway. The next
The Internet of Things.
huh?
I think the next stage of evolution, I think it's like things will have the ability to.
Well,
It'll be I think it's called the Internet of Things. There's a phrase that they use for the next. Go ahead, but there was this phrase that was talking about that next stage.
They will have they'll have more capacity to be able to monitor our phone calls and videos and shut things down faster. And there also won't be a need for as much law enforcement going into Kelly's question, because they're not going to have to track you down as much since they already are going to know like where you are and what you're saying and what you're doing. And so if it gets to the point where, as I fear through biblical prophecy, it says that you'll get the mark of the beast, and that will be an actual physical mark. That's not some kind of spiritual mumbo jumbo like some people say. That will be either it says either forehead or in the hand. And it's kind of odd that we're already, you know, putting a gauge to our forehead right now. And I feel like that's kind of programming you to kind of get a little used to and desensitized to the process of some kind of reader being in your forehead. Um, and so if they get to the point where they can just track you down, they can already just, all right, we'll just send the police to where they're going to be. So they're not going to need as many police. I also think some of these weird robotic contraptions might turn out to be something that they might use in a law enforcement angle, just kind of like a weird version of RoboCop. I mean, my thinking is almost all of these things that we've seen in these movies, it might not plan out exactly that way, but a lot of these sci-fi movies, I think, were trying to hint to us little things here and there.
Let's see. Kelly is also asking. No, Kelly also says with gentle effect. Sometimes I feel like Marcus is trying to convince himself of the truth of biblical prophecies more than others. Self-reflection is a good thing.
Well, what I'll say is, I've looked at what's going on around me, and before I was deeply, heavily into politics, and yes, I've always been somewhat religious, but what's happened as of late is I wanted to understand why things were always hitting these roadblocks in politics and why things were just never really adding up. And as I start looking deeper into the political ties and the money ties and where things were going and start going up that ladder, I start seeing, how George Carlin says it, the big old club that we're not in. And when you start seeing that club and how it's operated, and then you start understanding some of their internal beliefs, it made me actually go back to like, why do they think this? Why are they trying to do this? And the same things which I would see that it talked about biblically were the things that they were trying to accomplish. And then I started looking at things in the real world, as in things that are just happening, which I thought, man, that's not going to happen. I'm not worried about that. Back, easily 30 years ago. At this point now, I'm seeing things and it's like, wow, it's a whole lot more probable that that can happen. The thing which I thought was like completely impossible. So, it pushes me. I feel like what I'm seeing pushes me towards the beliefs more than the other way around. That's, I guess, my say so. But I could just be misinterpreting things and just be a little overly paranoid.
Okay. Let's see. Work Hearing Signs now says, what would these prophecies say about stolen democracy or rigged lot drawings?
Well, it doesn't get into actual prophecies about the election directly, but what it starts saying is when it gets to the those end times, they're going to want to be a level of control over everyone, where the government's going to literally know what you're doing, when you're doing it, and it talks about that time period going on. And there's going to be a time of kind of going to get a little crazy for a while, and then things will settle down, and everybody will think, oh well, everything's fine, don't worry about it. And then all hell is going to break loose. But it does talk about that. What it does say about the leaders of that time period, it says that we're going to be governed by fools. It says in the end days, you'll be governed basically by imbeciles. And I don't think we've had a time period when we've had probably any dumber leaders around the world all ruling at the same time. So, I mean, I think that kind of leads to a little prophecy there about, the politicians to say, oh, what did science, preparing science says now I'm tossing my sex toys and weed. Oh yes. Unfortunately, if that happens for any of you, I will try my best to rush out and make sure to cover those
and
items.
help us.
No, go ahead, Emmanuel.
I was just saying I was going to do the same thing. I'm just, you gotta help each other out, right? We don't want that to be our we don't want that to be the last thing anybody sees on our at the end days, right? So totally respect that. That's all I was gonna say.
Yeah, like one of the fun ones that I do like is it does talk about in the end days all the mysteries and things we've always wondered about, all these things will start becoming revealed. So I look at any conspiracy theory that all of a sudden now all this Pentagon information is coming out, and now, oh, wait a minute, yeah, we actually have more information about these UFOs and stuff. When all this information starts flooding out and flooding out and flooding out, that's all part of some of the signs. And it talks about pestilence, which, are insects and pests that are bothering you. And it talks about, famines, and it talks about um, uh, crazy weather patterns, and all of these things are all going to all start happening at the same.
Wait, do you put I glanced at one. I glanced at an article about it today. Do you believe that any of the plagues have started to happen recently in conjunction to what's going on right now? No, right? I meant to ask you that. No, right? No.
Not quite yet, because there's other things that have to, in order for me to, like, I go chronologically how I understand the prophecies are supposed to happen. So certain things are supposed to happen in certain orders. Now there will be little things. One of the biggest things which I've kind of looked for and watched for many years is it says wars and rumors of wars. And right now we have plenty of wars, and there are plenty of rumors of wars that are bigger to come. And then it literally talks about the handful of countries which are going to attack the place called Mystery Babylon. And those countries and their biblical names of Gog, Magog, Meshach, Tubal. Some of these places are Turkey. And look up what's going on right now in Turkey. There's all kind of unrest and craziness, and it has been going on since Erdogan took over. Which, like we said again, foolish leaders. You look at what was going on in Brazil. You literally had the actual cartels going around the streets and telling people to stay in the home because of COVID, and killing people in the streets. And the government had no power over that, which was Bolsonaro. Another goofy idiot. You look at what you got: Trump there. You got what, Boris Johnson. You got what's the other one who's been getting in trouble for whiteface or blackface in Canada. You go over to Trudeau. You go over to France. You got Macron. He's in his ass is on a sling right now. And you got protesters all in the streets. It literally talks about all of these things. Oh, I forgot. I jumped off the countries. Gog, Magog, Moscow, Russia, Meshach, Turkey, Tubal, Iran, and then it threw in one other country. And of course, it admits, it names Israel by name. The battle will happen in Israel. But it also talks about the destruction of a place called Mystery Babylon, which, in my understanding, I believe it to be America, because it talks about Mystery Babylon having all the nations drunk on its wines. And so America exports the most entertainment, movies, movies, music, all of those things like that. So we're pushing our culture more or less around the world. The reason why people dress the way that Americans dress is because of our entertainment and our influence in that way. So, and our military industrial complex actually influences other countries in the way they do things or not. So there's a lot of things there that kind of hint to me. It also says that a lot of people are not going to be believers, and are just going to perish in the lake of fire. And what I understand the lake of fire to be is not what you heard in Sunday school. You're going to be sitting down in this hell place, and your skin's going to keep burning off over and over and over forever. The lake of fire is going to be ICBM nuclear weapons landing down on America. That's what the lake of fire is going to be. Oh, are you about to say something, man?
Her comment. I was reading Kelly's comments. Let's see. She said, "As an atheist, I can admit that we've had 3 of the 4 horsemen so far. Yeah. I mean, I'm an atheist, and I could probably believe that. She also said Babylon will always be Iraq to me.
See, what you gotta understand is there's three Babylons mentioned in the Bible. Most people focus on the original Babylon, but
The Mesopotamian
when you
one.
start talking about Revelations, it talks about mystery Babylon, which mystery Babylon is going to inherit the traits of the of the original Babylon and of the second Babylon. The first Babylon would be Iraq. The second Babylon took on some of the culture in a sense, and that is basically described as the Roman Empire. That would be technically the second Babylon. And then the third Babylon's Mystery Babylon, which would take on the traits of the previous Babylons, which that would be the ancient Babylon of Iraq and all the things that went on there, and then all the things which went on through the Roman Empire, transplanted onto the new Babylon, which would be America. Oh, what was that? You're muted, man.
Okay, no, I was just reading the last comment. We're carrying signs now. Do you remember Homer's America try and stop us with the Uncle Sam taking bites out of the earth t-shirt? I remember that. And then Kelly's like so many Babylons. Let's see, let's go back up. We're carrying signs now. Before said, what is supposed to be the reason for the attacks? That's brought up in the prophecy, just to bring the end. Military industrial complex war, biggest polluter.
Well, the purpose for the attack, it will be because of all of these nations who have kind of broke bread with Mystery Babylon all this time, have been fed up with Mystery Babylon. And so now they're ready to enact their revenge and basically overthrow Mystery Babylon. So, I mean, in real world terms, that would be like, okay, China, Russia, Iran, Saudi Arabia is tired of dealing with the United States. So it'd be easier if they just attack the United States as a group and push them out of the way so they could become the next superpower, which I've always thought for many years worried about China, that if China ever fought the United States, it would be a huge problem. And I always felt as their economy grew, that was a threat we'd always have to watch out for. I never really factored in Russia, that they would be a tie in with China in that way, as far as an actual them teaming up to attack America, maybe separately, but never together. But once I start reading that in Revelations, it basically says, yeah, they are going to be teamed up. And if you see what goes on to this day, they are basically in tandem together, especially when they work with North Korea, when they deal with North Korea.
Let's see, yep, that's it. That's all we got right now. But yeah,
well, Kelly,
wait.
Technically, it's only
no.
three.
She was like so many right. She was going over so many Babylons. You know, you brought up like 3 different Babylons.
Yeah, technically, it's only three, and how they describe them as being the same is all the behaviors and belief systems and all the things of old Babylon passed on to the second Babylon. That second Babylon, what made it different than the old Babylon, was that its power was much stronger and it had a larger influence on the whole world. And so if you think about the Roman Empire, they basically went around and they conquered everybody, and they forced everybody to convert to Catholicism for the most part, or die. And so when they had that influence, it's like whatever the Catholic Church decided, that was the law of the land. And so if it was a place where they were a little loose with how they felt about things, or they practiced very hardcore, that was different. Also, the whole slave trade got basically, I guess, what's the word, blessed, for a better word, by the Roman Catholic Church, including a lot of the actual popes and friars used to actually have slaves themselves. and transported a lot of those slaves, everywhere around the world. That's the reason why you started to have slaves in, different parts of Russia and I mean, slaves of African descent were throughout Russia and throughout China, and that started to come through the Silk Road slavery, which a lot of people don't realize there were African slaves that back in that time, which were helping build the Great Wall of China. So I mean, it's been going back a long time. Under my understanding, most of those people literally who went from Silk Road slavery to Arab slavery to transatlantic slavery, Assyrian, Babylonian, and Egyptian are literally all the same group of people who've continuously kept being thrown back into slavery. Because if you go back further enough into history, you'll realize that the Roman Empire, the Greek Empire, most of the things they learned about their society and civilization came from the kingdoms throughout Africa. Then, as they were collapsing and basically destroyed by all the different pagan forces which went against them, again, it was reasserted, the civilization was reasserted again by the Moors, who came in and took over parts of Portugal, Spain, England, and started to sweep across most of Europe until they were thrown out of power. Many of them were flushed back into Africa or enslaved also. And so it gets so crazy when you start realizing that most of the world is basically trapped between a brotherly squabble that they don't even realize that they're in the middle of.
I agree. Let's see. Word Carrying Signs now says, what about the Dems taking choice away as being what Satan wanted? I guess versus Jesus Christ giving choice, repentance, and forgiveness, i.e., the Dems are Satanists, just asking in as per my previous.
See. Trying to get me in trouble answering that question. I'm not going to call anybody. I'm not saying I'm not going to call anybody a Satanist, because I do believe most of the Illuminati people and the Jesuit order and a lot of the Catholic priests and popes and a lot of high-ranking rabbis, let's just be honest, are cultists, are either unknowing Satan worshipers or knowing Satan worshipers. As far as the Democrats, I just believe that many of these people are just atheists. And so if you're atheist, yeah, you don't, it's just like looking at things in an equality lens. It's not looking at it as you have a supernatural figure who has told you, these are my rules, play with me and see what happens. And so we take the faith of, I'm not trying to play with him and see what happened. And I feel like the Democrats and even the Republicans on certain things, they're more in the house of, I want to test the theory.
Let's see. Kelly says, I'm running to Costa Rica as soon as they will let me. Too old to wait out actual progressive American policies, but I worry about you younger people. Yeah, we'll be, I don't know about Marcus, but I'll still be fighting out here. So, I mean, that's really all we got, right? I mean,
I think that I think what I can do best is to just try to inform people of what I know. And if anybody feels like I'm of value, to give them information on any subjects, whether they agree with them or not. I mean, I'm willing to talk about any subject under the sun. But I feel like the only thing that we have that can actually save us in any kind of way, whether that's a religious angle, and I know some don't choose to go down that road, but it's overall knowledge. And so as long as you're trying to get abreast of what's really going on in the world, like I said before, you don't even have to believe in religion. But what you definitely should believe is that the powers that be that are running this stuff and doing these things, they do believe in this stuff. And everything that they do is predicated off of these things. So whether it's whether you believe it's a supernatural being or God's will to make these things happen, or whether it's a bunch of crazy ass people who are going to make these things fulfill through their own actions, I think that either one are both, dangerous prospects to deal with. So I mean, but I feel like that's the reality either way you want to look at it.
Let's see. Kelly writes, a book I read from a shrink about reincarnation has humans living in the weird 3000 after a nuclear disaster in a much less populated Earth, but doing fine, togas and all. I have no idea what that book is. And I've read a lot. I have no idea what that book is. Let's see.
I'll say.
I'm just saying. Go on.
She brought up reincarnation. And I guess since I've been a little bit more liberal with my mouth tonight, I will go into some of my beliefs. And this does stem actually in the Bible. Most people don't read a lot of this stuff, which I've read, or take the time to read it the way it says that you're supposed to read it. Because it says word upon word, line upon line, precept upon precept. So that means you don't just like read 10 verses and just think you understand it. Sometimes you need to break apart these verses and figure out, is this saying this? Does this have multiple meanings? And that's where a lot of people run into most of their problems. There's a lot of evidence to suggest not reincarnation in the Bible, but regeneration in the Bible. That all of us actually go through cycles, and that the part of why when we start getting older, we start losing our memory and start basically turning back into a baby, is because when our souls go up to the spirit realm, back to I believe God, he has control to put us back into the bodies whenever he decides. And I mean, so if you have deja vu and places you've never been to, maybe you have been to that, maybe in that past life. Maybe if you wonder why because I'll give you one of the scriptures where it hints to regeneration. Christ is talking to one of his disciples, and they walk upon this blind man, and he asks, what sin did he commit, or what sin did he commit to be born blind, or what sins did his parents commit? And so what that's suggesting is that this dude committed sins before, and his judgment now was to be born blind. It also suggests that multiple times for different prophets, they suggest, oh, well, this prophet already came. You just didn't realize it was him because he was this person instead. And so I definitely believe in regeneration, but you're going to get most of those Christians who, what I call it, the Galatians and Paul Christians, who it's like, oh, you just follow 2 commandments and it's love everybody and blah, blah, blah. And that's the Bible. But no, it's a lot more complicated than that from my understanding. Oh, sorry, Emmanuel, you were muted.
No, I was muted.
I guess
I was saying,
did you go to film and musicals? That's an actual song. Honestly, I wish that I could actually have a Bible discussion with a Mormon. It would be so fun.
And by the way, Kelly, thank you for the name. I think you were alluding to the fact that I didn't know who that was. That was the author's name, Brian Weiss. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Oh, what Simon was saying, just to be tested as blind. Yeah, he was made, and basically they're like, yeah, he didn't have any sin. And I guess the point was for him to be blind so that Christ could show his ability to do miracles. So it's like, if you were supposed to be blind and you did something wrong in your past life, then hey, you're just kind of screwed under my understanding. So some of us, for some of the problems that we deal with throughout our daily things, it could be little things when we cussed out that neighbor the other day, and now you're wondering why you stubbed your toe the next day and it's been hurting a week. Some of those things are all interlinked, whether we look at it that way or not. That's just my beliefs. I know I'm a little, so, we'll leave it there. Let's see what else. Let's see what else do we have here. I guess I lost a manual there. Says Kelly says, I think we all need to not be dicks to each other, and whatever awaits us, we will be happy. We lived a good life. We're charitable when we could be, took care of the children, elderly, and animals. Yeah, I do believe that. See, under my understanding, which is different than Christians, um, Christ deals in individuals, and he's like your advocate for dealing with you as an individual. But God deals with nations. And so if your nation has done a whole lot of shitty stuff is coming to your nation. And only select few people out of some of those nations are going to be basically okay. Because biblically it says 2/3 of the planet is they're gone anyway. So that's just, that's how it says there. It says, do you follow the biblical philosophy that we are here to be tested? Not really. I believe we are under predestination. Here we go. Here's the manual back.
For some reason,
No, I
my
believe that
internet.
we are under predestination. I believe that some people are set to do certain good things. Some people are set to do some crappy things. Um, Through our regeneration, our goal is to try to come back and do a better job and not screw up like we did the time before and the time before and the time before until the judgment day. And then that final judgment, it'll be okay, you've had, I don't know, however many lives and incantations, and either you got better and you figured it out or you didn't and it's over. And so for some people who believe, oh yeah, well, I don't believe there's anything after this. For some of them, it's not going to be anything at all. I mean, but for others, it will be something after, and it can be a good something, or it can't even be a bad something. So that's kind of how I see that. Well, yeah, Kelly says she's being tested every day. Well, yes, all of us are being tested every day, and it's supposed to be if you are able to deal with those tests, then great things await you, and it's meant to see how you're going to be, how your character is going to stack up when people aren't looking. That's what it's more about, and what's in your heart and how you treat people, and those things are definitely going to be weighed out. But how I understand it, which this is different than even some people who share some of the same faiths that I do, that you have to be trying to strive to follow the laws, and there's a lot of them. Most of them are kind of guidelines on ways to kind of conduct yourself. But if you're not even trying to do the laws, then you're kind of getting yourself into a hot water also, because it says faith and works. So the way God understands love, if he says, like, it's kind of like your parents, they say, if you love me, you go do your chores. You can say, I love you, I love you, I love you. But your parents said, well, to show me, do the chores. And you're kind of just basically going to come to the place saying, well, I love you, I love you, I love you. And he's going to say, well, did you chop that wood for me? And so that's where I think where a lot of Christians are going to kind of get themselves into some hot water, because they're kind of going with this mindset. Well, I could just say I love the Lord and I've been good and that's enough. It's not. She says, what you're saying, do when no one is watching. Yeah, character.
Character is what you do when no one is watching, basically.
And that's what's going to get a lot of these people in trouble. You got a lot of these billionaires and wealthy people, and they're out there. Oh well, I donate to this cause, and I really care about Black Lives Matter, and I care about this, and I care about that. And what's going to happen is their deeds are going to be shown. Like, that's the reason why this Epstein stuff, I feel like, is all coming out. That's the reason why we're finding out about all these royal members going to, I mean, think this Epstein stuff did not just start. This has been going on for decades, and now all of these bombshells, everything is just being flooded out. And it's like in that time, you're going to have a lot of things start to be questioned. And I mean, if you look at, I say look at stuff like The Simpsons, what they put out there. It's eerie sometimes how accurate they are on some things, and you got to ask yourself, Are they being that accurate because they're just good guessers? Do they have a time machine? Or are they
Are they
dealing
just
with
slowly
something in
spitting
my
out the
health
truth to
system?
soften the blow?
Hmm.
You
And
know,
that's
just
what I think. A
spitting
lot
out
of people
some level of the truth to
soften the
soften the blow.
blow. Yeah, for when they decide to do things. If they know we're going to do a martial law crackdown in the streets and have the National Guard out roaming around, well, let's talk about it in a couple of shows so people can kind of laugh it off. So when it happens, it's not as startling. Oh, go ahead, man.
No, I was reading his comment. Sorry. He said, I guess no one has character with everyone being watched 24/7 on their phones. And then he starts to laugh. I'm like,
We have
well,
character. It's the people who are watching this that have the character issues, I believe. Because if you
right.
need to spy that much on other people, then obviously you've done enough stuff to create so much guilt and paranoia in your head that you can't trust anybody around you. Then
Force some mirrors,
obviously you
man.
got a lot of skeletons that you're dealing with, and that's what gets us into a lot of. I feel that they use as a good shield. A lot of times they'll, if you start trying to call them out, then they hide their skirts around somebody else. They say, oh, you're attacking all of us as a culture. No, I'm attacking these probably 150 people or so, or maybe 1,000 people at the top. I'm not attacking a couple million people. It's specific people who are at the tops of organizations, who run things, who hide information, and those are my enemies.
Kelly says, I love my religious buds. I love my little religious buds. I have no idea who she's talking about because
And,
well, you're
and
not a believer and neither am I.
well, I guess Chris is a little bit, but let's see. Oh yeah, and I guess I'll go in a little bit because we're almost at an hour and a half. We'll finish it out. We'll finish it an hour and a half, and I'll go into a little bit more. What I was talking about the 5G. It's also said that it will reduce a lot more need for actual manual labor and actual, bodies in some of these storefronts and locations. And so when they're doing a lot, like, when you go to the grocery store and you see um, these I guess, what do they call it, the self checkouts. When you're seeing all this self checkout stuff, it's going to be easier for those systems to stay up and running. They're going to have less issues with them, so they're going to need less people sitting there monitoring those machines. They're also going to be able to monitor them remote, so it'll get to a point where they won't actually have to have people in the stores to a certain degree. They're already working on machines with stock shelves, and they also are I saw this maybe like 6 years ago. The first coast to coast semi went from Jacksonville, Florida, out to San Diego, I believe, and that was completely done remotely online. And so the 5G is going to help facilitate those kind of things. So I know that
Definitely paved the way to automation and stuff like that. So yes, you're
it's
right,
going to give
Marcus.
way to more of the automation. And like some of the people, I don't know if I believe this part, but I've heard people say that that's going to also lead to more of the tech actually being in our own body. So to the point of where we'll actually literally be online, where they can actually track us online just like they could the computer and have literally all of our data all the time. And so if you ever seen the movie like Minority Report, you know, that's what we might be heading towards, something like
That's
that.
what it feels like. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh, what were you saying?
Pre-crime. What was I saying?
Oh, what did you say?
No, I said you were talking about how it's going to be like Minority Report, and I was just saying, like pre-crime. I was just agreeing with you. That's what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's what it'll get to because eventually somebody will decide, well, I can decide the chemical balance what's going on with them, and because of their search algorithms, watch out, Kelly and Science, because of their searches, I can tell that they're about to kill themselves or they're about to poison their lover or whatever. So it'll make it a whole lot easier for them to decide, you know what? Kelly keeps tweeting out all this stuff, which I don't like. Marcus is becoming a nuisance. You know, let's deal with him. Let's say, you know what? He was looking up, Hitler. He looked up Hitler, so that means he's going to try to do some kind of Hitler type attack. They can use any of those types of things once they have all of your information and data, know where you are, at what time and how long. They're able to put you in a location and make things happen. So, I mean, to me, it gets a little scary, but I honestly think that that's something that we honestly have to prepare for and watch out for. What's your thoughts on that?
I'm definitely worried about it. Of course, the Patriot Act is a small, it's a very small extension of that, and then you add in the danger of 5G, and it just gets so much. It can just get so much bigger than that, so much darker than that. Like, I know Elon Musk is even like trying to get like, like tech in your head like right now, and I'm just like, imagine if he could like actually like, like say download literally all of your biometrics or literally stuff that you see and taste and feel and stuff like that. It could be a very like literal like could be a very like literal matrix like
Yeah,
where you could literally like be like locked up in your head, right? Like a literal matrix where you're like literally locked up in your head. So the the places that your imagination could go thinking about that are just they're a little frightening. So that's where I am. We're about at one little over an hour and a half, man.
Okay. Yeah, I'll finish this last comment.
Yeah.
Sign says, oh, wait a minute. I think Kelly had one I want to read right before signs. It said, oh, Kelly said, I had a former employee tower guy fried when he worked between two of the towers. And that's what people are not talking about, this 5G also. It has an intense amount of radiation that comes off all the towers. And what has gone on during this COVID lockdown, I was like, it's kind of weird timing, but literally as we've had the lockdowns, they've been installing towers around the world like crazy. And so you'll see some of them. I didn't realize we have one literally right behind my job that looks almost like a palm tree, but it's a 5G tower. So I wonder what are some of the actual health effects that we're going to have for people who are living near these towers, because now you have what is it, T-Mobile and Sprint have come together to make the largest combined network, and that's how they're going to get to this
merger.
I think it's only a matter of time before you have AT&T and Verizon all come together and merge, and then we have basically one telecommunication service going across through America. Um, uh, Science says, I saw a question he said about the Satan. Oh, there it is. At least you agree the DNC is Satanist slash Troy Stephen Bunch. LOL. I've written to my progressive Dem Congressman DeFazio and Senator Merkley, dropped the D in 2021 before you run next. Well, see, here's the problem. They can even drop the D or not. Look up the Bohemian Grove. If you look up Bohemian Grove, you start seeing like some of their flight patterns. You'll see people like Kamala Harris has already been out there. When you're to that level and you start going to the Bilderberg meetings and stuff the year before, and you start going to certain IPAC meetings, or not IPAC, that doesn't sound right. But well, you guys,
APAC.
Yeah, when you start, they start going to all these APAC meetings, and you start seeing certain donors, which they start getting tied to. It's already too late. It is already too late, because once they've already taken the money in the first place, the very next step, which they do almost always, is they go for whatever your device is. So if they find out, okay, you like to cheat on your spouse all the time, they're going to supply you with that opportunity to cheat on your spouse just to record you. If you want to go mess with young women, they're going to put you on like a Lolita Express and take you out there with Epstein to one of his mansions and take pictures of you and then blackmail you that way. I mean, we go all the way back to Woodrow Wilson, how he got caught up with a woman that he was tied with, and these same powerful people play the same game. Say, for instance, if you're running as a conservative, you want to try to hold the evangelical traditional family look, and you're actually secretly gay, and you're hiding that, and you want to have a secret, gay relationship, they will facilitate that just to keep you in control, because you might not want that information out there. I.e., like what happened with I can't remember his name down in Florida. That's the kind of things they do if you start to step out of line. They do this on literally everybody. So if they have it all the way up to the Trumps and the Bill Clintons and the Prince Andrews, they start working it all the way down the food chain. So at a certain point, the nest is almost so corrupted, it's almost hard to find where's the good one, because it's almost like you're dealing with, 5% of Congress being Serpico and the rest are completely sold out.
You saw that last one?
Huh.
So Joe Biden, I wasn't gonna take it seriously, but you can answer it if you want.
If Trump remains in office, I could definitely see possibly one of them going to prison, and not even being from Trump's action. Just
Let's say that's Joe Biden. Where did you?
Yeah, he said
Not
if they
Trump,
get arrested, they run the DNC.
No, if Joe Biden and his son get arrested, who will the DNC run?
Well,
I mean, but
he run. Oh,
right.
He's not.
I was going to make a joke that it doesn't really matter who.
It doesn't matter. They already got their person in place. It's Kamala.
Right.
Yeah, Kamala.
Right.
Kamala's who they wanted from the beginning. Once they saw things were not going to stack out as well with Kamala, they decided that they had to put Joe in there to kind of shake things up. And I believe that Joe knew that he was just trying to hang it through the primaries and beat Bernie.
Kelly's right. They're not going to get it.
They were ready to be done with it and then hand it over to Kamala. And with Kamala being in the number 2 spot, you might as well say Hillary is your new president, because her staff is probably 65% Hillary Clinton's former staff, and the other 35% is Obama staff. So you're getting Obama Clinton all over again.
All right, I gotta get going, man.
Yeah, I'll finish. I'll think of something out here. All right, this has been the Political Matrix. I'm your host, Young Moore. That's so loving to call me Marcus. And my co-host here with me and good friend Emmanuel, known as the Blue Maverick. Make sure to comment and make sure to come back. Make sure to retweet us. Make sure to share. Word of mouth helps get us out there. You all have a wonderful, wonderful week. And we'll see you again next week. Have a good one. Thank you.